Hello, good afternoon, and welcome. Good afternoon if you're in Europe. If you're in India, it's good evening, and good morning if you're in the US or wherever. So welcome once again to the Business and Banking Dialogue. And I said good afternoon because my guest today is she's from Netherlands. So that's how I began. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Business and Banking Dialogue Show. This is a bi-weekly show every Wednesday and Friday. So we try to get you the best of best topics and the best speakers on that particular topic. So today our topic of discussion is the Gen Next ATMs that are expected to be rolling out, and we have with us a very good speaker. And I'll give you a brief about him in a while. Just to give you a little background, set the perspective for today's discussion. ATM's transformation is perhaps the slowest. We all have seen ATMs. They haven't made much changes. If you see the look and feel, it's been exactly like this for years. However, looks like the journey of change has begun. Financial services technology is currently in the midst of a profound transformation. As the digital teams are preparing perhaps to embrace the next major phase of digital transformation. The challenge they face is significant. Okay, COVID, of course, is there, which is a challenge for everything and anything. A competitive environment of rising cost pressures, rapid action and response is imperative. Financial institutions must modernize their technology and processes and support expanded digitization, which is a push from many countries, from the government itself, as like in India, where the digital push is straight from the government side. Everything they want digitized. Furthermore, the current COVID-19 situation is putting immense pressure on technology capabilities. Remote working, people are now on work from home, new cybersecurity threats, new changes that are coming. Your European version of GDPR is coming into India, and so is it coming into many other countries. And that requires the digital team, especially the CIOs, to anticipate and prepare for the next normal. Okay, we are always looking at what's going to be the new normal. So most major financial institutions are well aware of the imperative for action and have actually embarked on the necessary transformation. So changes is happening. I mean, if you don't change, you simply die, right? As they say. So changes are happening. So ATM is one industry which hasn't changed much. So it's changing. So what are the changes coming? What is the Gen Next ATM? To talk about that, we have to talk about the next gen ATM. We have with us Mr. Marcel Ficken. He's a next gen payment specialist. A brief profile about him while the slide comes up. Marcel is since 2018 a ATMIA technical advisor for the next gen ATM program and worked on next gen ATM documents like next gen Blueprint 2019, of which he will talk today. But that's a very important document. We should know what's happening, what's coming up in the near future. Next gen ATMIA implementation guide, technical standard assessments and roadmap implementation models of 2018. These are some of the things that he has worked on. Marcel has 20 plus years of experience in different management, business, and technical roles in the European payment industry, especially in the new technology, business development operations like EMV, the contactless ones, which we all are aware of, from ATM, POS, mobile devices, acquiring host infrastructure. Marcel supported many banks, processors, and vendors with their ATM projects, not only in Netherlands, where he's based. He's also worked on many projects in Europe, Turkey, and USA. He has been a consultant on the ATM mobile devices, acquiring host infrastructure and gateways, like solutions like design, vendor selection, international product growth. He's also a consultant on project management, test automation consultancy, and training new technology. So Marcel is a MBA and holds project management Prince 2 certification. So welcome, Marcel. Very good to have you, and good afternoon to you from Mumbai.
Thank you very much for the invite and the nice introduction, and congratulations with 100 plus business and banking dialogue webinars.
Thank
really
you.
Big achievement.
Thank you, Marcel, and it's a great to have you. So Marcel has just yesterday he has kind of had a review of the new blueprint of the next gen payment. So there's a lot we have to learn from you. It's like just hot from the oven, as you would say, the new blueprint of what's the next gen payment looking like. So we'll talk about that with him. So let's ask the first question to him. Could you, Marcel, could you give us broad outlook and perspectives of the next gen ATM blueprint? Like I said in my start, ATMs have never changed, right? So, but here it is something that's going to change. We look forward to the changes, and we look forward to hear from you. What are the new perspectives of the next gen ATM?
Yeah. Thank you. The next gen ATM blueprint is developed by the ATMIA, the ATMIA, the ATM Industry Association Next Gen Consortium, which consists of 375 plus companies around the globe. So it covers 6 continents, and all major stakeholders in the ATM industry are participating. So deployers, banks and non-banks, and the providers, hardware, software, and service providers. So we defined a next-gen ATM app and API-based architecture in a common blueprint, which is, you see behind me, is the example of the latest version of it. The next-gen ATM blueprint is for the ATM acquiring channel and consists of 3 layers. It has the lower layer, the endpoint layer, where the ATM is, but also the mobile phone, the customer-owned device. So it can, in the future, it can also be other types of devices. The app services layer, where it's connected to drive and to provide different services, and an infrastructure layer of the acquirer. We have provider agnostic apps and APIs, where we will leverage on international standards as much as possible, and we leave also space for the provider and deployer specific apps and APIs in the blueprint for new innovations to differentiate as a vendor or a provider to another to have a level playing field in the ATM industry. And everything is together bundled in the implementation guide, which is based on the blueprint, next-gen blueprint.
Okay, so from a customer point of view, like I am a customer, I walk into the ATM. If the blueprint is implemented, what are the kind of changes that I would see?
I think that the major change you would see is the possibility for the deployers and the providers for contactless, to use your contactless card at the ATM, but also your mobile phone. So your own mobile phone, like you used to, a personalized app, so your mobile banking app, which are used for payments, for money transfer, for other things, for your financial situation. You can use that same app, and they can build in their ATM services into their mobile app to also to communicate with the ATM. So you're not, instead of having a generic ATM screen, this must provide all types of customers, local, international, banked, unbanked customers to support the ATM services. You have now your personalized on your mobile device or mobile your own device. It can also be a smartwatch or other type of device in the future to connect and to communicate with the ATM.
Okay, that's a big change that looks like coming up. So could you just tell us more on the the use of mobile, because with COVID-19 coming and touching objects becoming a big issue by itself, because you could carry the virus if you touch things. So people are shying away from using the ATM because they have to touch the keypads, they have to touch the ATM device by itself. So the use of ATM, perhaps I don't have the statistic to say, may have come down because the fear of touching the ATM keypads. Now with mobile, as you say, I can use the mobile, go in front of the ATM perhaps, and use my own mobile and do all the instructions that I would do on the ATM. So tell us, how would that work? Is that screen exactly the same screen of the ATM, or I can have my own customized screen on the ATM or on the mobile? Get us some explanation, some details out there, Marcel.
Yes, good question, and you're totally right. The COVID accelerates the need and the ATM journeys of the providers and the deployers towards to implement the next-gen ATM blueprint, just because of the social distance and using the mobile app, which is of course their private space. They know they can integrate it. So instead of a generic user screen, they will have a private customized user screen like the banks or the provider, the financial service provider provide them. So the person who provides you the bank account or where you have a bank account, their mobile app will be integrated in their app the functions to communicate and to do the transaction with the ATM services. So it's more personalized. You don't need to touch that much the ATM itself. You can even pre-stage a transaction, so you can have richer user experience and functionality. For example, you can pre-stage the transaction. You can select which denominations of the banknotes you want. Then even the mobile app can inform you, okay, what's the closest ATM where you can go to get your cash advance if you want to order cash or other services, if you want to deposit cash or do buying cryptocurrency or central bank digital currencies, that kind of other services, or paying bill at an ATM. That kind of services can you do more prepare on your own screen before you enter the ATM, so you're shorter at the ATM itself, and it's more personalized in your user flow, in your user experience, what you are used to, how you do your normal financial banking.
Okay, that's a big change that's coming up. So you're saying that it will also tell us if I want certain types of denominations, which is the nearest ATM I can go to. Is that true?
Yes, it's correct. So we have the denominations, we have the option. So the APIs and the blueprint supports it. Also the implementation guide is of course up to it's a flexible framework, and it's up to the provider, the financial institutions, the deployers, and the software and hardware and service providers, how much functionality they want to implement. But all what I mentioned is all possible to implement into in the next gen ATMs. Yes.
Okay. You have any presentation or something on which you want to show us, Marcel?
Not
okay.
No,
okay.
sorry.
Okay. How about the smartwatch? I mean, we in the business and banking dialogue, we had people, experts coming and telling us the days will come when you can use the wearables, the watch, the smartwatch, perhaps, and you can do transactions. Tell us something on the smartwatch functions. How will it work on the ATM?
For the blueprint defines only the APIs, so how to communicate with between a smartwatch or a mobile phone or another token or whatever future device or token there will be. We don't define the rules or the specifications for that kind of device, only how to interact with the ATM, and that's currently by the international standards, what's supported by the international payment schemes. So like the in-vivo specifications, which define the NFC, so the contactless interfaces or the QR code interfaces. We have also laid in the last blueprint, we added also like an iBeacon interface for an additional possible security layer, which is provider specific. So we have certain items which are provider specific and certain items which are provider agnostic to connect multiple and to be interoperable to create a level playing field. Okay, thank you. That's I think, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to see a transformation based on the blueprint. Initial initial things that Marcel has said about, and so that's going to take this thing. What's the time frame we are talking about, Marcel? We have delivered at the beginning of this year the first implementation guide version, so version 1.0 final, which contains 5 functionalities, which is mainly cash withdrawal. So you can do it with a contact card, so the current. Of course, it's backwards compatible, so it supports also the current versions for card withdrawal with MagStripe, EMV, contactless, but also cardless, and especially cardless. There are 2 flavors. Partial cardless with using the tokenization method for the card data, and a full, which you do more with bank account data or relation to directly to the card account. And that's available at the moment already, and we are in the final stage of the certification program. So you can already pre-order and pre-register for if you have the implementation of a next-gen component to do the self-certification at the ATMIA next-gen portal. You can order it and then do the self-certification to have a next-gen certified ATM component. And at the end, of course, the complete chain. If you have all the components for deployers, they can connect all the different components together and have the complete ATM channel next-gen certified.
Okay, that's so I think, ladies and gentlemen, all of you who are in the ATM industry, the payment industry, this is something exciting for you all to look at. Maybe you all should look at contacting ATMIA and getting yourself certified so that you're prepared for what's the change that's coming about, which is, this kind of a change is what we were looking for very long. So ladies and gentlemen, I continue to have my discussion with Marcel. I'm sure you have a lot of questions to ask on the next wave of ATM, the Gen Next ATM as we call it. So you can ask your questions in the Q&A box, or if you want to ask a question directly to Marcel, you could do that also. Just raise your hand and the digital team will try to get you across to Marcel to answer your query directly. So look forward to your questions and do send them as early as possible so we don't have to rush at the last minute. Marcel, could you tell us about the journey of next-gen API app ATMs that will change the way the ATMs will look and how the ATMs will look and function in the near future?
I may make most of the time the comparison with the mobile phone. We have for 50 years now ATMs, like you stated correctly, with the same look and feel. It doesn't change that much. We add some functionality, but still it's like it's coming from DOS, going to Windows, and getting screens. Compared to the mobile phone, when we started, we had those big phones with only the dedicated operating system, not fancy apps and smartphones, and we migrated to the smartphone industry area. And that is now happening also with next gen, with the ATM industry. We're going to an app and API-based ATMs. So we are creating apps on the ATM, which can be from different suppliers. The next gen blueprint makes it possible to provide different apps from different providers at the ATM by the deployer. It's still from the deployer look and feel on it without a lot of implementation. So it's a very high level API, which is open, which is defined in the implementation guide to access and to create those apps. We have different APIs, like we have, for example, already using XFS. It's like an API which is creating a level playing field. So we have multiple vendors and it's vendor agnostic, that API. We leverage more on that, like we have with XFS for IoT, which is the next version of XFS, which is currently built by the CEN XFS committee. But also like the front end to the communication between the mobile phone, for example, for the customer-owned device towards the ATM. We leverage on the Invico specifications and also on the ISO 20022 Nexo specifications to the app service layer, to the host infrastructure and the infrastructures. So we extend the vendor agnostic chain from XFS toward the end-to-end chain, that every vendor can place his component, they can communicate with each other based on the same standards, international standards in the industry. At the same time, we still leave also space for provider-specific interfaces and functionality, of course, to stimulate innovation and also in the level playing field as well.
Okay. So you are saying that things will change, the look and feel will change. So let's see how the banks and others make those changes, make it more exciting for the customers.
And I think the look and feel will more change towards what the customer is already used to in their mobile banking app. So what they used to, it will be integrated instead of a separate screen, which is different for each ATM where you go coming through. You can use your own mobile device, and it doesn't matter which next-gen ATM you want to use. If it's a next-gen compliant ATM, you can use your mobile phone with the functionality which your bank, your financial service provider, provide it in your mobile banking app.
Okay. You've been saying of getting the. Are you looking for next-gen ATM getting certified by ATMIA? Is that something you're talking about? Yes,
correct. We started a certification program like Invico and Mastercard and Visa have by ATMIA, and you can do the certification of different levels. So each component which using the provider agnostic interfaces, so the mobile app using the interface, the level 1 interface to the mobile or to the ATM itself, so the ATM appliance is one level, or to between the ATM app is the level 2 certification. API, which is defined in the implementation guide, we do the certification. The certification, self-certification to between the ATM and the ATM host, which we have a lot of different protocols at the moment available in the market, from NDC, DDC, IFX, things like there. We standardized on the ISO 20022, the Nexo specifications. So then you can have an ATM and a host interface which will communicate with each other with the same protocol, with the same functionality, supporting it end to end, and the same towards the infrastructure behind it, the infrastructure to the payment gateways and the acquirer, different acquirer functionality servers.
Interesting. Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, you could perhaps contact ATMIA or look at their site to know more about the certification, because that's change that's coming. Opportunities are coming your way. So perhaps we should all gear up towards that. Marcel, I have the first question coming from the audience. Mr. Khandelwal wants to ask you a question. He says, sir, can we hope for new generation ATM like QR code reading? So he talks about the QR code reading system. Likewise, new generation ATM will read the information of the user from the chip without touching the ATM machine and will operate on voice commands.
That's an interesting question. Yes, correct. We started at the moment, what's supported in the current version is that's the cardless transaction type. What's asking about, we support QR codes, and QR codes can be in two ways. It can be a QR code which is displayed on the ATM itself, like it's like merchant presented. So you display the QR code on the ATM and the mobile phone reads the QR code from the ATM. Also the other way around, if the ATM has a QR code and barcode reader, it's also possible that the ATM reads the QR code from the mobile phone to make the connection and exchange the information between the ATM and the mobile phone. So there are two ways in that, like around biometrics, like voice, fingerprint, and that kind of functionality. It's up to the payment schemes if they support it. So it's not that we didn't specify it in the next-gen blueprint, but it's up to the payment schemes if the rules and regulations allow that kind of authentication of the customer to be supported. If it's supported by the payment schemes, we will support it also in the next-gen blueprint and implementation guide.
I think one more question he had in his query was use of voice commands? Can voice commands be used?
At the moment, we have not implemented voice commands in the implementation guide or in the standards. We are making selections, what's based on the market needs, which functionality has the highest demand in the market, and we define that together in the industry working groups of the next-gen working groups. You can join that for free of charge. You can join the next-gen ATMIA consortium, which has already, like I stated, almost 400 companies around the globe. And then you can participate, share your knowledge, share, define together the priorities, which kind of priorities and direction you would like to go with ATMIA, the consortium, for what kind of functionality you want, what kind of, and also the technical implementations for it, and also the certification part. So we have functional, technical, and certification working groups, and several committees, including security, user interface committees as well for it.
Okay, that's
so
good. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Marcel. Sorry.
So with various committees where you can discuss how we use it and what we, but at the moment for voice command is still in the vendor specific area. So we support it as the next-gen blueprint, but we didn't define yet a common vendor agnostic, provider agnostic APIs or interfaces for it.
Very interesting. I have a person calling to you from the south of India. Tyag wants is an experienced person on the ATM front. Tyag, please unmute and ask a question.
Yeah, hi Marcel. I'm very excited about the whole initiative coming from the global body of ATMIA on the next gen app ATMs, API ATMs. I look forward to the implementation going forward in 2021 and in near future. Having said, as a consultant you are driving, I have two questions for you. One is, the whole globe has become a small, a village. It's a global community. So can the new next-gen API app ATMs, can it handle multi-currencies? Is my question one. And my question two, like this is a new trend, a trendsetter in the ATMs, coming with the app-based COD ATMs for the customer to do a pre-stage transactions. So having said, will this new set of ATMs, API ATMs, will enable the IADs, that is the independent ATM deployers and financial institutions, to customize according to their own requirements and then offer this for the customers? Over to you, Marcel.
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. Indeed, the next-gen blueprint and the implementation guide will support that direction. The user interface are deployer specific. So it's like you develop an application for your mobile phone. You have the software development kit and the SDK of it and the APIs which can to call the mobile phone operating system. It's the same. You have the APIs to call the ATM and the ATM services in that API, and it's up to the deployers and the software developers to develop those apps which can facilitate that kind of functionality you requested, you mentioned. And of course, it's up to the ATM. If the ATM supports multi-currencies at the moment already, it can also with the next gen. We didn't, it's on the list to be developed probably for next year. It's like dynamic currency conversion to make it a provider agnostic interface as well in the implementation guide. But the framework allows you, is flexible and dynamic enough to allow it already from start, that kind of functionality you mentioned. And also with the pre-stage transaction, we didn't specify specific use case, all the use cases in the implementation guide. It's the framework, and within that framework, you are able to implement a pre-stage transaction using your mobile phone to pre-stage the transaction, to authorize the transaction already. Then when you arrive at the ATM, you can exchange the information with the ATM using contactless, the contactless interfaces, the NFC contactless interface, of course, or by QR code one way or the other to get the service provided of the pre-stage transaction.
Thank you so much, Marcel. It's quite exciting, and thank you so much. I look forward to the launch. Just to add one question, continue to that, if you can permit me, KK, is when is the POC or the proof of concept is already been tested, been put into the market, and can you just share the synopsis, just a summary of the outcome of the POC to our viewers and attendees? I'm quite excited, Marcel. Please.
Yes, what we did when we in December last year, when we put the implementation guide version 1.0 for public consultation for 3 months, so the whole world, ATMIA and non-ATMIA members, which are not part of the consortium yet, could also provide their input and feedback and contribute towards the implementation guide and the blueprint. We did the proof of concept of the several transaction types already. So it was a first development to validate the specifications in the implementation guide, because as you know, in every development phase, the first time there are certain parts which you can interpret in multiple ways or manners for specifications. So to prevent that we have a lot of topics which you can interpret in multiple ways, we did ask some vendors to participate in the proof of concept, and it was open for all parties to participate and to validate the specifications, and we made the adjustments towards it into the final version of the implementation guide with the results of the proof of concept. So it's like a validation of the specifications. And of course the participants have first implementation of a proof of concept, the concept implementation available, which they use now further for their implementation in their releases and implementations for the next versions of their software.
Thanks, Marcel. Thank you so much. India is a great market with just 200,000 machines right now. Plus, we look forward to the real next-gen app ATMs in India play shortly for enabling our millennials and the next-gen generation to actually have a feel and look of the next-gen app ATMs. Thank you so much.
Thank you. To add, at the moment, we are busy with an IAD, so an independent ATM deployer for the retail ATMs proof of concept as well. So it's like the low-end ATM configurations, also to do proof of concept for around QR code and with next-gen. And it's free to apply if you want to participate. You could send an email to ATMIA, to Mike Lee, who is the leader of the next-gen consortium of ATMIA, and the CEO of ATMIA, who's managing this consortium. And if you want to join the consortium meetings or working groups, you're most welcome as well to join and send them an email to apply for it.
Thanks, Marcel. Thanks for your suggestions. I'm in touch with Mike Lee, so we look forward to. Thank you so much for driving this initiative. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Thank you. Very good questions, Dan. So I have another interesting question coming to you, Marcel, from one of the audience from this. You talked about QR code. You said yes. Biometric, yes. Voice command, not yet. He asked, what about the Internet of Things? Will the next-gen API app ATMs will support the Internet of Things? That's where the world is moving to.
Yes, we are just when the whole idea behind the next gen started when next gen was 50 years old. We celebrated that in 2017. Then the vision came, okay, how about the next 50 years? How can we change and become more modernized and keep up the space and not keeping for 50 years and after 50 years we have to reinvent the wheel again, but keeping a cycle. So we have now with the next gen blueprint and implementation guide, we have more an agile and scrum way of working. So we have annual reviews, and we producing each year a new version with the latest technology used in the market, available with new functionality which is wanted in the market as well. For the about the question, we have implemented the voice note, like you stated, and the question was about the, sorry,
Internet of Things.
Internet of Things. We have already
IoT.
for Internet of Things supporting the XFS for IoT. We work close with the XFS for IoT, so it's the next version with the Internet of Things version of XFS, so you can directly access the drivers and the hardware of the ATM. Using that interface is the CEN International CEN XFS for IoT committee who is drafting that version. We have now reviewed together till with the blueprint the first concept version, and they expect the schedule is that by the end of the year they have the first draft version to be published for broader acceptance for the XFS for IoT. So this will be the first IoT version which will all be supported by the already supported by the current blueprint for next gen. On top of that, we see that, for example, beacons, iBeacons, we support as well for an additional security layer to put an iBeacon on the ATM. On one hand, towards the mobile phone to provide an additional certificate which you can add to, for example, your cardless transaction to send together with your mobile phone towards the network and to the issuing provider for the authorization of the transaction. On the other hand, also the other way around, from the beacon towards the ATM provider to be sure that the ATM is still on the location where the beacon says it is. So it's a 360 degrees validation you can do then by that technology. It's part, if you want to know more about it, the details you can find in the proof of concept results, which is a white paper, which is also on the ATMIA site. You can free download in the white paper list at ATMIA. So yes, we are busy with IoT for sure. It's a new technology. It will be supported and is already supported partly in the next gen blueprint.
Fantastic. Yeah. So what we're hearing is like music to the ear, because there's so many changes coming. You thought contactless cardless ATM, right? Could you give us a perspective on cardless ATM, next gen ATM blueprint, but exactly how does it happen and how will it go?
Sorry, can you repeat that question? Like...
Yes. Could you provide perspective on the cardless ATM, or the contactless ATM? How does that work on the next gen ATM blueprint?
Okay, we have in the cardless transaction, we have two types of cardless transactions. One type is the cardless transaction, which we call the partial cardless. What's meant by that is that the transaction is tokenized, but they tokenize still the card data. So you still need a card data, even if it's a one-time token, which translates the token in the card data to be processed by the ATM acquiring infrastructure towards the issuer. So you still need like the primary account number and some card data to be process that transaction. The other one is the cardless full transaction. Then you don't need any relation to a card. You only need the account data. So you can, for example, the IBAN or the account data to do straight the transaction without any reference to the card on the ATM. And we support that with the provider agnostic interfaces from the mobile to the ATM, from the ATM to the ATM app. So the ATM apps like you have on your mobile phone, the apps, and from the ATM towards the infrastructure, so the app services layer, so the ATM driving host, and further to the network and the international network gateways, and also the acquirer gateway if it's an on-us transaction of the same at the same ATM with the card holder of the same ATM location.
Yeah. Thank you, Marcel. Ladies and gentlemen, as you see, or rather as you hear, and you see Marcel talking about the next wave of the ATM, next gen ATM coming out, it's very, very exciting. A lot of things are happening, a lot of changes happening. What you have seen for so many years is perhaps going to undergo a change. So I'm sure you have a lot of questions to ask. So as usual, do send your questions early in the Q&A box, or if you want to ask a question directly, you know what to do. Raise your hand, and the digital team will help you to ask a question. So Marcel, we talked about could you give us some insight into the vendor agnostic standardization and the MVS, or the multi-vendor software for the next gen ATMs? Because that's very important. That it cannot be one vendor specific. It has to be working for everything. Can you tell us something more about it?
Yes, what you see is the next gen ATM consortium leverage and continues or extended the multi-vendor software principle or direction, where the multi-vendor software using the XFS and now also the XFS for IoT to connect different types of software to the same software to different types of hardware of different providers and vendors. The same principle applies with vendor agnostic or provider agnostic APIs. What we're doing, we defining not only from the software to below the ATM hardware, but also up in the value chain to the ATM apps, to the ATM host, and further to the ATM gateways, to the international schemes as well, that they are provider and vendor agnostic, and we leverage their on international standards as much as possible if they exist, and if they can by the consortium are agreed upon, and when they are not, we will as ATMIA define together with the working groups those standards ourselves to be a vendor and provider agnostic API, so to connect multiple versions of different vendors and different providers towards each other, to have an easy and integration of the different components in the ATM value chain and channel. And all the different
is that the same for?
No, pardon?
Go ahead.
And
go ahead,
that's for all vendor agnostics apps and APIs. They can be certified by ATMIA, by the self-certification system, like I stated, for an easy plug-and-play connection to the other self-certified components of the same level. So we have 4 different levels. The level 1 is the API between the mobile phone and the ATM appliance. So the ATM appliance is the hardware software. It's in orange in the blueprint. The level 2 is between the ATM appliance hardware software and the ATM app. It's like with the mobile phone. That API is a deployer specific app. So each deployer can develop his own, customize with his own user experience, like their customers are used to access and to communicate with their customers using the same API to have access to the ATM. And the third level is between the ATM host and the ATM, so the ATM driving host and the ATM itself. And the fourth layer is between the ATM driving host and the international gateways or the acquirer services which are there. And then we have the end-to-end channel. Then you do the certification of an ATM channel for an deployer of all the different ATM components from different vendors. Can be the same vendor, but can also be for different vendors which have next-gen ATM certified components.
Okay. So, like we had the ATM operators, who are other stakeholders in the entire collaboration effort for the ATMIA's next gen project? Did you have banks? Did you have hardware and software providers and such other stakeholders all coming together?
Yes, yes. We have all stakeholders from the industry. So there are like 375 companies. They are well spread. There are banks. There are also IEDs, so independent ATM deployers, so non-banks, but with deploying. There are service providers there are hardware vendors, there are software vendors, the implementation or integration providers, all different types, consultancies, companies as well, or CIT companies, all stakeholders or all parties which are involved in the ATM channel and ATM industry are part of the consortium. You can see the breakdown of the consortium on the ATMIA next-gen portal as well. There are how many companies and from which areas the companies come from, and which part of the industry. So it's a broad, common, yeah, all stakeholders of the industry are there.
That's nice. It's good to hear. With more and more digital and cashless push, and this is happening almost in every country, that the dependency on currency, cash, is coming down. Is the demand for ATMs as a payment channel receding, or are they actually going down? Is the demand for ATMs going down?
I think for demand for ATMs itself, depending on the country and the area, it's more what I see is the depending on the infrastructure in the country. Are there more ways you can pay electronically by card payments, or is there more cash usage and also is there banked or non-banked population difference as well, and that mixture defines the population of ATMs which are needed. What you see is that there are more and different services at the ATMs depending on the country. For example, in the Netherlands, you have very straightforward cash in, cash out deposit kind of functionality, because we have a high population of card payment infrastructure, point of sale terminals, and card payments and banked population. For example, in Turkey, I know where you have also a lot unbanked population which use a lot of cash. You have also a lot of cash facilities and cash functionality on the ATM, like you can pay your electric bill or other bills you can pay on the ATM. So you have much more richer functionality there and functions on the ATM and the usage of ATM in cash than in other country. So it's depending on the country, infrastructure of the financial infrastructure of the country, and as well is a lot depending, for my opinion.
Yeah. So although you did answer this question, there's a query which has come in which says that what is the timeline for the implementation of the next gen ATMs? Specifically, he's asking when is the POC going to start, and when are the APIs going to be released?
The APIs are released. So the first APIs are at the moment available in the implementation guide version 1.0, which you can download from the ATMIA Next Gen portal. And the first implementations we expect in Q4 this year, so next coming quarter, that the first implementations will be there to start the certification. So we are now in the race with around the world for the first next-gen ATM, certified ATM by ATMIA, which will give, of course, by ATMIA a lot of publicity as well. Like it's a new milestone in the future of ATMs and the new way ATMs will look and feel and in the digital world now and in the future. So it's there. It's coming at the end of the. You can start implementing it, and if you need support, we are there also to support you with the business case. There are documents there for a quick scan to define your road towards next gen, because each next gen ATM journey is different for a provider and deployer, where to leverage on next gen, where to differentiate still in the level playing field. We have all documents and white papers available on the ATMIA portal, which will support you in your next gen ATM journey, what will fit the company at best as deployer or provider.
I have a next question which asks, will the new ATM, next gen ATMs as you call, the existing ATMs will have to undergo a change physically, or it is just a migration of the existing ATMs to the new next gen ATMs?
It's depending on the current ATM configuration. That's why we have, for example, the IED lower end ATMs as well, which run on WinCE or an embedded operating system, can also support some parts of the next gen already. It's the same like with Windows or operating system upgrades. At a certain point, if you want really new functionality or new things, for example, if you want to read a QR code, yeah, you need a QR code reader or an NFC reader. If you want to read a contactless card, if that's not available at the moment at your ATM, it's possible, perhaps depending on the vendor, to have an upgrade, or it will be in the new version. So the next generation of the ATM hardware as well. So the next series of ATMs. For sure, the next series of ATMs will support it, but to upgrade, you can upgrade your current ATMs already with next gen functionality to benefit, especially from my opinion, at the user interface. It's very interesting to start to upgrade and start the migration already, because those items you can easily transfer also to the new next versions of ATMs, or if you replace the ATM or if you upgrade an ATM with hardware or further, you can transfer the software part very easily towards the new ATM as well.
Is that the ATM industry is asset intensive or capital intensive? How will the next gen ATM blueprint ensure maximization of return on the capital or return on a net asset?
Okay, we have developed as ATMIA a next gen ATM business case matrix, economic metrics. You can download from the or from the portal. It contains more than 20 new revenue streams you can benefit from next gen, and also more than 20 cost savings to get a lower total cost of ownership of next gen ATMs. Our recommendation is to bundle it with new functionality. It's not like a new ATM release like EMV by itself, but bundle it with your current roadmap. So look at your current ATM channel roadmap. Which components do you anyway want to change or upgrade of the software in the coming year, of coming years, and then plot there, okay, if you take that upgrade, add also the requirement, make it next gen compliant, so you are ready for the future and you can leverage on that new functionality as well, which will benefit also your business case. Positive, generating more revenues, or easier generating new revenues with less infrastructure implementation and effort impact, or lower your total cost of ownership within your project already. So it will help you also to make your business case of your current functionality and roadmap implementation projects already from the start.
Interesting, very interesting. What about the new technologies? Is the new next-gen ATM using any of the new technologies like AI or blockchain or any such things inherently?
Yeah, We have defined in the infrastructure layer, so that's layer 3 at the acquire side that they will use AI to look at the data, especially to personalize and customize the user experience even better, because when you know what your customer asking for and how they use the ATM, the next time you can perhaps make it easier, that flow, and repeat. Do you want to have the same experience as last time without entering all the information? Or so that's available also for what we see that some companies use it for preventive maintenance, so they can predict based on the infrastructure and the components if there are errors or if there are usage, how many times it's used. They can predict and use it as preventive maintenance. So when they are at the ATM anyway, they can do already the preventive maintenance instead of that the ATM has an issue or is broken and somebody has to come there in an emergency hurry to solve the issue, because otherwise the ATM is out of order for the time frame.
Okay. So we are nearing, but the gentleman who asked a question directly to you, Tyagarajan, he wants to ask a question. Tyag, go ahead, ask the question.
Yeah. More than a question, KK, it is just a statement I would like to share with Marcel. We are quite excited about this next-gen API ATMs, and as you said, the implementation is Q4. So hopefully by Q1 of next year, we would like to see the model and its whole functionalities in India. And thank you so much for taking initiative on this next gen. And all of us from here, being from this industry, I'm 22 years in the industry. Thank you so much. I look forward to this Gen app ATMs in India next year. Thank you, Marcel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcel. Yeah. So I think we have come to the time, 1 hour since we started, and we would love to ask you many more, but I think time is of essence to you and to me and to us. So ladies and gentlemen, I would like to wind up this session. Exciting times coming up for ATM. I started my this session saying that if there is one thing that has not changed in the many years that we have seen, is the ATM. ATM has not changed a bit. But now the new ATM, next gen ATM is coming. The blueprint has been released. The review has been done and it's going to be released. And look at the changes that are coming. QR-based ATM, biometric fingerprints, voice command not yet, but will come, multi-currency, contactless transactions, mobile screen. What you see on your mobile, you will be able to see on this thing, and you can use your mobile to do most of the transactions, which otherwise you do it on the ATM, which means touching the ATM is perhaps not going to be there, accepting to perhaps pull your cash out. Use of IoT, which is the in thing that's coming up. Use of artificial intelligence to kind of derive at various objectives of the transactions that are used. And and the blueprint, the beauty is the blueprint has been a collaborative effort of not only the ATM providers, but also banks, the software companies, card products, vendors, consultant. So everybody has put their heads together and said, this looks like the blueprint for the next generation. So it's exciting times for all of us that the ATM is all set to change, and we shall see those changes coming. Please join me in thanking Marcel. Marcel has been very, very elusive on the entire blueprint. He has brought forth the changes that are coming, threadbare. And I think we can see on the ATMIA website perhaps more information if you want to, if any of us do want to see more of that. So please join me in thanking Marcel. Marcel, thank you very much for coming, spending time with us, and telling us all about the new blueprint.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and it was a pleasure to share the information. If the people, visitors want to know more, we have webinars from the ATMIA webinars in October in Europe and in November in the Asia Pacific. where also next-gen will be in topic. So it can be also interesting if you are interested, or join the next-gen ATMIA consortium. Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of people would be interested in going for that area. So ATMs are going to change. Okay, so I have to rephrase that. I have said it has not changed. It's going to change. So let's look forward to that. With that, I kind of close this session. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me. And I look forward to meeting you all on Friday for another interesting dialogue. Till then, goodbye and take care of yourself.